stage miles, and alongside co-driver Ronan Morgan.
It's a car very neat and tidy, a little bit of understeer, which is front-end push. With these cars, obviously everything is oversteer, and in order to get round some of the corners, you have to set the car up before you get there. And we've run for an hour and a half this morning, and it's okay. I adapted very well. But then gradually Ronan put some notes to the little stages that we're doing here, and then it's someone's just turned the lights on now. Now I'm quick, I can take all the chances, cut the corners, and feel very happy and confident in the car.
50, finish. Now, in my mind, there's absolutely no way that you could be quicker there.
No. 2 tough weeks of practice and testing made Warwick very aware of the demands of the event. This is the standard his teammate has reached, Marco Allen, winner of 19 World Championship rallies. And the man Warwick surely would have no hope of catching, Carlos Sainz, en route to the 1990 world title. And with that title won, Toyota suggested he needn't contest the RAC, but Sainz was determined to line up in Harrogate with the rest of the world's top drivers.
I have the opportunity to stay at home. My boss say, if you want, you can stay and take a race. But I was really interested in this rally. I like this rally, and I wanted to come here.
This year's action started on Sunday's spectator stages with a fundamental change to the style of the rally. This year, the co-driver's pace notes could be used through all 350 stage miles of the route. Pentti Ricola and Ronan McNamee, last year's surprise winners, were first into Sunday's opening stages, which are by tradition a gentle, if entertaining start to the competition. Ricola victorious in the Mitsubishi Galant last year, now at the wheel of the four-wheel drive Ford Sierra Cosworth, and heading for the Chatsworth Park water splash, where a large proportion of the huge first-aid crowds had gathered. And the Ford proving itself a competitive, if far from watertight car. Here's Carlos Sainz not getting off to the best of starts in the Toyota. Sainz gave a masterly performance in the Forest last year, only to be robbed of certain victory by mechanical failure. He looked quick through the mists of the British Steel Works at Scunthorpe, but he was off the pace on the opening day. And setting that opening day pace was Marco Allen, who was quite superb in the Subaru. The man who won the Lombard RAC in 1988 was giving strong indications of what he might achieve in this comparatively new rally car. The car to beat in recent years has been the Delta Integrale from world champions Lancia, and Juha Kankkunen was just a couple of seconds behind Allen. Mitsubishi, last year's winners, were represented by Kenneth Eriksson and by Ari Vatanen. Both had a bumpy ride through the water splash. The British challenge was led by Malcolm Wilson, and in the Ford he was going well behind the leading trio. And his very competitive Ford drive was taking a lot of the British pressures and expectations away from the British champion, David Llewellyn.
He's taken a fair bit of that pressure that I had last year, obviously being seated in front of me at, I think it's 8, and in the Ford, the British-built car, he's taken a fair bit of the Brit to win pressure away, so I'm feeling a little bit more relaxed, I must admit.
Llewellyn led briefly on the opening day last year before suffering mechanical failure, and once again in the Toyota he's safely through day 1, although down in 15th. There were ambitions right the way through the field. Skoda, for example, were going for their 18th class win in 18 years. John Haugland at the wheel, and the car picking up its first dents very early on. And also with an ambition to survive the opening day was, of course, Derek Warwick. He'd stepped out of his Formula One Lotus into those 2 weeks of testing in the Subaru and was ready for the challenge of his first RAC.
It's unbelievable. It's fantastic. I haven't enjoyed myself so much for a long, long time. It's the most difficult thing I've ever tried to do outside Formula One.
But Warwick certainly didn't give that impression. He switches from Formula One to the World Sports Car Championship next season. But on the evidence of what he achieved this week, his other option could well be the World Rally Championship. Opening day, he was reacting well to the promptings of the experienced Ronan Morgan alongside.
150, press right 6, 30, right 1,
End of day one, he was down in 24th position, but he was saving his best form for the forest to come.
100.
Obviously, very pleased to have got through. Disappointed in special stage 3 because around the British Steel section, it was the only stage I didn't do recce. And I got there, it was complete blanket fog, and after 200 meters from the start, all the radios went down, so I had no notes. So I had to drive the whole stage blind, and it was disappointing because some of the sections that was flat out, I was backing off because I just could not see because of the fog. At least we're here. You know, I mean, everybody kept on saying, if you can get here on Sunday night, you know, you've crossed a big hurdle.
Now the competition was due to start in earnest, with Marco Alén leading just 3 seconds ahead of Juha Kankkunen. Malcolm Wilson in 4th, behind last year's winner, Ricola. The long forest stages would be where the rally genuinely began. And the first of the leaders to hit trouble on day 2 was Marco Alén. Turbocharger problems, and Alén would drop out of the top 5. Things would change quickly at the top. Kankkunen hit problems as well, and Kenneth Eriksson was into the lead as daylight came to the North Yorkshire forests. And for Warwick, this was very different to the stately homes and the theme parks of the day before.
Keep it going. Come on. Come on. Push.
Warwick learning another of the contrasts with Formula One. In rallying, spectators are an integral part of the action once you persuade them to get involved. And it's not hard to get them involved. Torrential rain, bitterly cold, but once again, thousands and thousands of enthusiasts have trekked into the normally impenetrable depths of Dalby Forest, the great centrepiece of these second-day Yorkshire stages. And they were watching Kenneth Eriksson trailing marker tape in the Mitsubishi, taking the lead from his 6th place overnight, and Eriksson would lead well into the afternoon. Carlos Sainz was also having a far better day. The world champion was moving into 2nd. Malcolm Wilson, with vocal support at each stage, was into the top 3. And his Ford teammate Ricola was going very hard, given the unpredictable conditions. Coming up is a right-hander, where Ricola is just a little over-ambitious. Penty survives, but at a price. Notice that as a result of that, the driver's side windscreen wiper has stopped, and that's a very big disadvantage in the mud and the rain of this 20-mile stage, the longest of the day. So Ricola has to loosen his seatbelt and drive the rest of the stage leaning across to get the clearest view. Uncomfortable, he can't reach top gear, but the Finn manages to stay in the top 4. Third on the stage, behind Kenneth Eriksson and Carlos Sainz, was Timo Salonen in the Mazda, one of 4 former world champions in the top 10. And here's another, Kankkunen, blasting through Dalby without any brakes. Brave drive, but he'd slide back down the order, as would Russell Brooks, a top 10 place for him early on, then dropping to the back of the field with steering problems. Steering problems too for Colin McRae. McRae 12th overall after the first Dalby stage, entertaining the crowd, which was estimated in the region of 25 to 30,000. David Llewellyn also unable to scrub off the speed in the Woodyard. Llewellyn moving up through the top 20. Welsh support for Llewellyn, and also Welsh support for Gwyndaf Evans, who was making his anticipated strong challenge in the Group N showroom class. Per Eklund, one of the great stalwarts of world rallying, has got going after a roll, and he did very well to get back in the rally at all, because viewed from Warwick's car, here's Eklund's co-driver running back down the stage. And there's Eklund. And they had to get the car out of there.
80, right 3.
But with spectators' help, they managed it. Eklund now pursued down the stage by Mats Jonsson, who was having a fine drive up to 7th in the Toyota. Derek Warwick was really acquitting himself very well indeed on his first serious taste of forest rallying. He managed a top 20 position on the stage here, in front of talented drivers like the Belgian Robert Droogman, and he was showing the kind of commitment that he normally reserves for Grand Prix qualifying. Warwick, getting quicker all the time, was also in the top 20 overall. The Grand Prix driver, fast and brave on the high-speed descent into the Dalby Woodyard.
And right 5 over crest. to right 6. 250, barely slipping. Put up now, 100, left 5.
But more disappointing for Subaru was the retirement of first-day leader Marco Allen. After turbocharger problems, he'd go out with a blown engine. But now the crowds were being treated to a quite tremendous struggle between Kankkunen and the world champion Carlos Sainz in the Toyota. Kenneth Eriksson was also in touch as well. Kankkunen had astonishingly kept the time he lost with that brake problem to the real minimum. Now he was reeling off the fastest times to close within 5 seconds of the Spaniard. Only the second day of the rally, but every risk was being taken. After 12 of the day's 14 stages, Eriksson here was just 10 seconds behind Sainz, with the charging Kankkunen 3 seconds further back. Heading the way for Mazda, another former winner of the event, Timo Salonen. He was well in touch in 4th. Second day casualties though, Hannu Mikkola, Salonen's Mazda teammate, had joined Marco Allen among the retirements. Ricola here was frequently flirting with disaster. The rain had kept up for most of the day, the stages were very, very slippery, but Ricola's only approach is to attack. Four-wheel drive Ford, Ricola had managed to gather up every potential spin, every hair-raising slide, and he knew that a possible long-term contract with Ford might well be the result of another successful RAC rally, hence the urgency. McNamee here guiding his man through the Wycombe Forest stage, which was used in the recent Mobil 1 Rally Challenge. They're running the stage in the opposite direction here, uphill, but Ricola has to correct another worrying moment. But then, on the 8th stage of the day, Ricola lost control of the Ford here and finished 100 yards further down the stage. A long walk home for near the end of the second day. Malcolm Wilson remained the leading British runner in 5th position in the Ford. Then came last year's world champion Mickey Biasion, dragging his Sumgard, his first visit to the Lombard RAC Rally, and taking time to get into contention. Further down the field, but heading for honours, this is Gwyndaf Evans, now leading the Group N showroom class after the challenge of Mäkinen and Middleton had disappeared. Auckland Skoda was so far having to give second best to Peugeot in his class battle. Louise Aitken-Walker, the new ladies world champion, was in 24th place and struggling a little with just two-wheel drive. But up front, it was Carlos Sainz for Spain, 5 seconds ahead of Finland's Juha Kankkunen, Eriksson third for Sweden. Day 3 into the border country, and a rallying location that even Grand Prix drivers have heard of, Kielder Forest.
80, right 5, 30, left 6.
Derek Warwick getting an early morning taste of what was required from picturesque but very, very demanding stages. Car parks in Kielder were full to capacity 9 hours before the first car arrived, and that was Carlos Sainz picking up where he left off the previous day. The stage is slippery, but tyre choice was crucial, and Sainz and Kankkunen rarely had more than a couple of seconds between them. Also in the picture now was Mats Jonsson, also in a Toyota. Good driver, but not one of the really established names on the World Championship scene. But he was having a very fine rally and was into the top 4. Behind him, the 1989 World Champion Biasion, some way off the overall leaders, but now really getting tuned in to the demands of the Forest on his RAC debut. And the same applied to Didier Auriol, winner this year in Monte Carlo, Corsica and San Remo. Auriol lying 6th on his first RAC. But British interest in the top 10 was very badly hit on the third day. Malcolm Wilson, he'd be out on stage 24, the Ford breaking a cam belt after one too many excursions from the straight and narrow. And it was a similar story also for Derek Warwick. He'd continued to give a mightily impressive performance, keeping the Subaru within sight of the top 10. But the car was to give up the ghost, understandably enough, after moments like this. Ultimately, damage to the sump guard and stones in the engine compartment helped spell the end to Warwick's rally. He'd been amazed by the standard of driving around him, but the Grand Prix driver had won a few more fans himself, even if at times he got perilously close to some of them. So Warwick, with Ronan Morgan playing a big role alongside him, was to add another element to his great versatility as an all-round motorsport performer.
It's been a hell of an experience. But you can't take it lightly. I'd need to do more testing next time. I've learned a lot from everybody, you know, from drivers, from personnel, ProDrive and Dave Richards and Subaru. You know, they've all taught me so much over these last 2 or 3 weeks. Invaluable, fantastic.
So Warwick out, but others were soldiering on. Armin Schwartz losing time here in the Toyota and dropping back through the top 20. And similar trouble for former world champion Ari Vatanen. After a string of problems, he never figured very high on the leaderboard, and at the end of the day, he'd be out for good. Rather more pristine, this is the Honda of Robbie Head, leading Class 2 for showroom class cars of up to 1600cc. This is one of the more intense class battles, with Vauxhall and Toyota putting up strong opposition. Class 3 was led rather more comfortably in the Daihatsu Charade by the former national champion Terry Cabey, and he was also on course for second place overall in Group N. In the absence of Malcolm Wilson, the battered Colin McRae now took over as leading British driver. McRae riding his luck to hang on to 7th behind some very illustrious names. The Scot ahead of the Welshman, Llewellyn, who'd moved up into 8th position, only to drop back with a puncture problem, which required him and Phil Short to change the wheel of the Toyota on the stage.
It's not nice when you have to stop and change. It's 3 minutes we lost there, you know. I think we were up to about 8 before that. That's put us back out of the top 10 again, which is a little bit disappointing. But, I mean, it's still quite a long way to go, and there's plenty of action at the front, so it's very, very quick at the front. I mean, the pace is unbelievable, to be honest. I mean, there's some stages and they're nearly taking a minute out of me, you know, and I think, how are they doing it? It's very, very quick.
But unexpectedly, it will be Kankkunen who would make the vital mistake on the final day's run through the clear air of the Lake District.
You want to go as far as junction 3? As far as junction 3, it is a bit icy.
A sunny, crisp day, but the reconnaissance crews were reporting treacherous conditions, and ice decided the outcome. Juha Kankkunen slid off the stage in Kurzop Forest, and Carlos Sainz was away and clear. On board the Toyota, this is the new world champion, emphasising exactly why he's the best rally driver in the sport. Luis Moya alongside him, and together this season they've won the Acropolis Rally, they've won in New Zealand and on the Thousand Lakes event in Finland. And they've backed it up with 5 other top 3 finishes to give Spain its first ever World Rally champion. And now Sainz is heading to victory on the Lombard RAC Rally. In theory, Sainz could relax, but Kenneth Eriksson was still going hard in the second place that he'd inherited from Kankkunen. Sainz couldn't afford to relax too much. Eriksson was only a minute and a half behind. In third was Mickey Biasion, and he was definitely still trying, albeit 3 minutes adrift of Eriksson. Then it was Mats Jonsson putting another Toyota into the top 4, an excellent finish for the Swede, and an outstanding finish for Colin McRae. With Derek Ringer alongside, he brought that battered Ford home as the leading British runner in 6th. His illustrious father Jimmy McRae had crashed out on the first day. Colin made up for that with a performance that promises a lot for the future. In 8th place was David Llewellyn. Now he heads off to a works drive with Nissan, which could give him the chance to make a real impact on the World Championship scene. The other Welshman, Gwyndaf Evans, 11th overall, but comfortably winning the showroom category for virtually standard cars. And on board with Gwyndaf, the softer, quieter ride that suggests this is a car with very few rallying modifications. Louise Aitken-Walker, 17th overall, and taking the ladies' prize. And further down the field, class victory for Terry Cabey in the Daihatsu. He was one of the trio of drivers that took the team award on behalf of the International Rally Drivers Club. Disappointment for Robbie Head. He dropped out on the last day. Class victory there went to Tony Shields in the Toyota. And Skoda, they missed out on class victory for once, but emerged overall as the top manufacturers. But Toyota as well leave the 1990 Lombard RAC Rally with some satisfaction. Mitsubishi may have claimed the first Japanese success on the event last year, but now Toyota had guided Carlos Sainz home as the first non-Scandinavian winner since Roger Clark in 1976. Colin McRae, that fine 6th place, and further down the leaderboard, Toyota, Ford, Mitsubishi and Lancia, well, they're all represented in the top 10, which shows the current strength of the World Rally Championship. And that strength underlined by the man from Madrid, Carlos Sainz, with co-driver Luis Moya, winners of the 1990 Lombard RAC Rally, and they are the men to beat in 1991.